Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then we're available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Monday, July 10th, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ+ community. Our mission is to support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian, trans, student youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America. Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Well, let's welcome anchor FayWhat. She is a radio and television personality and is a popular broadcast, The FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ+ morning program right here on the Happening Out Television Network. It's Monday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. She is also a hostess and MC for many South Florida events. Welcome, Faye.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. In the gay agenda, Thou Art Woman, Queer Love Art Exhibition opening reception. Join Thou Art Woman on Friday, July 14th at 7 p.m. at the Island City Cultural Center for Queer Love. Come enjoy the art, entertainment, and each other. The Queer Love exhibition is presented by the nonprofit Black LGBTQ+ Liberation, Inc., Blink. This exhibition centers and celebrates queer love. They aim to give visibility to how queer women love our intimate, romantic, sensual, and sexual relationships. Get your tickets right now at thousartwoman.com/tickets.
Now let's welcome anchor Francia. Francia is an Afro-Venezuelan recording artist, singer-songwriter, dancer, lawyer, and yoga practitioner. His first album, Infinita, is streaming on all music platforms and is a genre-fluid melange of Latin rhythms. Before finding his artistic vocation here in South Florida, Francia practiced corporate law in New York City and was a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Welcome, Francia.
Thank you for having me. And in the gay agenda, the new Miss Maxima Latina pageant. Leida Alvarez Productions and PR makes the official announcement of her new beauty project, Miss Maxima Latina. The contest that will highlight not only the beauty of the Latina woman, but also her family values, traditions of her Spanish roots. The mission of this event is to continue empowering young people to be our next leaders in different walks of society. For 20 years, they have done it with the Chica Venezuela contest, and now they will do it with the girls of other countries residing in the USA. For more information, go to their Instagram at Miss Maxima Latina or call 786-306-2539.
Now let's welcome anchor Bonnie Builder. Bonnie is the premier South Florida bodybuilding drag queen, words you don't often hear together. A recent graduate of FIU, she comes to life with a microphone and a spotlight. Welcome, Bonnie.
Why, thank you. In the gay agenda, the Pride Center at Equality Park of Fort Lauderdale Film Festival presents La Cage aux Folles. Join the Pride Center at Equality Park and the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival at Favor Cinema on August 29th for 2 special screenings of La Cage aux Folles, In this 1978 comedy, Renato, Ugo Tognazzi, and Albin, Michael Serrault, are happy that their son, Laurent, Remy Laurent, is getting married. Unfortunately, the bride's father, Michael Galabru, is a die-hard conservative, and Renato and Albin are rather conspicuously gay. Register for your tickets at fliff.com/pride.
Well, let's give a warm welcome to Mateo Ventura Bruer, the esteemed executive director of the Aqua Foundation for Women. Mateo is proudly trans and Latina and is Aqua's first transgender executive director. Welcome, Mateo.
Thank you. In the gay agenda, Aqua Foundation TransCon. The Aqua Foundation for Women, a nonprofit organization in Florida, is hosting the Aqua Foundation's TransCon, a day-long conference focused on the needs of the transgender and non-binary community. The conference will take place on September 9th, 2023, at the Scott Galvin Community Center in South Florida. It aims to provide educational resources, healthcare resources, networking opportunities, and social aspects for the transgender and non-binary community. The theme of the conference is Connecting Community to Resources, aiming to support transgender and non-binary individuals facing legislation and attacks on their rights. Find out more at aquafoundation.org.
Well, we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Monday, July 10th. Let's queer up the courts. Kansas AG sues the state to block trans people from changing state IDs. On Friday, the Republican Attorney General of Kansas sued to force the state to be among the few that prohibit transgender people from changing their sex on their driver's licenses and to repudiate the Democratic governor, who continues to allow such changes despite a new anti-trans law. Attorney General Chris Kobach filed his lawsuit in state court seeking an order to stop Governor Laura Kelly and agencies under her control from letting transgender people change their licenses. Kobach contends a law that took effect Saturday prevents such changes and requires the state to reverse any previous changes in its records. Kobach has argued that the law applies in the same way to birth certificates, but the lawsuit filed doesn't address those documents. The settlement of a 2018 federal lawsuit required Kansas to allow transgender people to change their birth certificates. Even with a raft of measures targeting transgender people in state houses across the U.S. this year, Kansas would be atypical for not allowing them change sex or gender markers on birth certificates, driver's license, and more. More than 900 people in Kansas have changed their listing for sex on their birth certificates in the past 4 years. The most interesting thing here for me of what the Attorney General is pursuing is, first, he's going against the governor, which is a Democratic governor in Kansas. Kansas, like the women's decision that the public voted on abortion rights, is kind of conflicted right now. And this is a perfect example of the Attorney General and the governor fighting over really kind of settled law, because the Supreme Court ruled that transgender people had the right to change their birth certificates. And so as a result, he is saying, well, it's not specifically a ruling on your driver's license, so therefore I'm going to go after driver's license name changes. And from my view, it's silly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if it moves back into the courts and ultimately to the Supreme Court, Kansas is going to lose again. But it just seems like the Attorney General just has literally a hard-on for trans people.
But
Literally.
This fight between the Attorney General and the governor highlights a modern issue in modern politics, especially in conservative states, which is most of the time these conservative states have won their Senate races, whereas Democrats win half of the governor's races. And that creates sort of this dichotomy between a very liberal governor and a very conservative senator.
That makes sense. You know who I'm thinking about, though, are those 900 people that changed, right? That had their legal paperwork to match who they are legitimately heart, you know? So it's like you had to jump through all these hoops, all these obstacles to get the paperwork done, to get all that done. You have your license that matches your true gender identity. You are who you are. And then you're going to get another one in the mail going backwards. Like, how freaking dare you? You know, I mean, suicide is at an all-time high in our community, right? And things like this just push people to have those awful thoughts.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly your point. It's 900 people. 900 over 4 years, and we're telling these people that does. Frankly, as a trans person, I'm tired. I'm tired of like talking about this. Let's leave me alone. Let me have my license. Let me have my birth certificate. Yeah, not hurting anybody.
How does that affect you? You know.
I'm curious beyond that question. That's the big question. Why are you doing this? Again, I always make the point, Mateo does not speak for the entire trans community, but how does the trans community process something like this? Birth certificates are settled constitutional law by the Supreme Court. And this attorney general comes in and splits a hair on that interpretation to say, oh, we're talking about driver's license. And I think it applies to your birth certificate, which it doesn't because the Supreme Court's ruled on it. But I'll throw that in for measure too, but my lawsuit doesn't deal with it because I would lose in the courts because the Supreme Court's already decided. How does the trans community respond to the frustration of this?
I mean, I know a lot of people already weren't even changing their birth certificate because you don't need it for as many things. You need the license, you need your social security, you need your passport, but the birth certificate, for some people, it's very meaningful to have that change.
Yes.
And for others, if it's not necessary, then it's just more hoops, as you were saying, and a cost and a whole stack of papers.
You know, one thing that I want to say that I realized just in this last week, I was at the Floatorama
Flockfest
event.
No, Floatorama a couple weeks ago.
Yes, and coming home for it, I didn't drink. Thank goodness, and I wouldn't. But I'm on my way home, and I moved across a lane right on Federal, too far, and there was a police car right next to me. And I cut him off a little, the police officer, and he pulled, and the lights come on, and I pull into a shopping center, and basically he reads me the riot act of what I was doing, asked me if I had been drinking. No, I haven't been drinking, etc. And I thought to myself, if I would have presented my registration and driver's license as being, I reflect as a trans woman, but I would have presented the driver's license, I would have been into all kinds of situations that I don't know what I would have been getting into.
No, they let you go because you're white.
And they
that's the thing.
They let me go because I'm white. And at the end of the day, while many people listening to us will say 800 people, you know, and et cetera, it's not a big deal. It is an incredibly big deal because my privilege is not, you know, what that especially a trans woman of color's privilege is. A simple traffic stop can open a world of hurt on these people.
And don't try to travel as a trans person. I mean, come on, you know, you have a passport that says one thing, you have a license that says something else, and then your name is something different through Southwest. You know what I mean? Like, what a cluster F.
I mean, I thought about getting the new X on your passport, but then I'm like, well, what about if we want to go to certain countries?
Yes.
I don't know if I want to
put a target on your head. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Watch this space. And next, let's queer up gay culture. Ballroom culture continues to gain mainstream acceptance and visibility. Black and brown transgender and non-conforming people face particularly challenges within LGBTQ+ spaces and society at large. One of their responses is joy and liberation through a self-sustaining social network in ballroom culture. You may have seen it in popular TV shows like Pose, Legendary, and RuPaul's Drag Race, but it's closer than you think, and the culture is thriving, honey. Mother Tiana is the mother or leader of the House of Saint Laurent, an iconic figure that's lasted decades in the ballroom culture. Tiana said, quote, "I grew up in a biblical Christian household. I wasn't privy to knowing anything about the trans experience. I barely knew what it meant to be gay," end quote. Flossie, an artist and member of the iconic House of Saint Laurent, shares the excitement saying, quote, "Ballroom has created the space where we can put all that stuff on the side and be with like-minded people who want to have fun and who like to be extra," end quote. In these highly intricate choreographed balls, contestants show off their look, poise, skill, and whatever makes them unique in front of adoring fans. From the very beginning, balls have incorporated pageantry, fashion, and dance. This ballroom culture and its balls have a freedom of expression that means family, living, loving, or dancing, or voguing through it all as they leave it all on the ballroom floor. And I love the show Pose, where we have seen Billy Porter gain such momentum in his career through this role, Pray Tell. And I just want to lift up a little bit some of the momentous achievements that Pose has achieved for our culture. They have 20 Emmy nominations. They have won 4. Billy Porter won in 2021 as Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama. And MJ Rodriguez became the first nominated trans actor to win for the same Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama, which was so amazing. And then she went on to win a Golden Globe for that role. So we've achieved amazing momentum with this visibility that it's brought. The cast itself, it was the largest cast of transgender women on a TV series scripted. So way to go for bringing visibility to ballroom culture.
And it's so interesting how some people had never even heard of ballroom until something like Pose came out, right? Or Legendary. And, you know, you also, right? For real? You know, it's something that's so talked about in history up in New York and stuff like that. That's the only reason why I knew, you know? And so on the FayWhat show, I have an incredible boy that stays in bed with me and we talk a lot of crap every morning. And his name is Jamal L. Starks. And he is part of the House of Gorgeous Gucci, right? And he, of course, he walks face because he's freaking beautiful, right? And so I asked him for a quote and body. Have you seen that ass? Anyway, so what he said, as a gateway for me into LGBTQ plus community back in the early 2000s, it was a joy to see that it's finally getting the light and takes up space as it truly deserves. Watching the evolution and growth in real time is an absolute joy for my community. I mean, how perfect is that?
Yes. I will say the ballroom culture is so resilient. They've been given so many opportunities throughout decades, and then have had those opportunities stripped away from them. And yet they continue to persevere and stay poignant and stay political and stay in our faces, up to the point where they are now on the television screens of middle America who don't give a good goddamn about us. So I just want to praise the ballroom community. I love you guys so much. I understand that the show Legendary on HBO was taken away for some business reasons, but can somebody pick up Legendary, please? It was a very good
Like, come on, can we talk
show.
about Megan Thee Stallion?
Oh,
talk about
God,
come on!
Stallion.
Come on.
That is a rapper. And rapping is a style of music.
He knows who.
Are you white bashing?
50 years of hip hop.
That too.
What's interesting to me about what you say about ballroom is it reminds me very much of the trans community. It's resilience in that it's just attack. And they learn how to defend in various different ways. And in the ballroom scene, it's very creative in the defense. You know what's interesting to me about ballroom? I had never even heard of ballroom until I came to South Florida. Now, this is after years at RuPaul's Drag Race, but at RuPaul's Drag Race, in the early implementation of the first 5 or 6 seasons, ballroom and trans was absolutely a rejection. It was,
isn't that crazy?
Trans,
isn't that crazy?
Don't talk trans. And de facto, I think the same for the ballroom.
Even though they use ballroom terminology like category is.
Yeah. And voguing, that was very prevalent in RuPaul's Drag Race, and they put a quick stop to that. Like, wait a minute, give love where it's supposed to be, you know?
And they had a ballroom icon, Mariah Balenciaga, on the show, and they still didn't talk about it as much. But
And exactly right. And the other thing that I want to say is that right, exactly. She came around.
She did, right?
She did come around.
Yes, she did.
Is the House of Lords here in South Florida. I would make the argument much better than the House of Gorgeous Gucci, but no, I wouldn't want to open that door. But I went to a ball in Miami, it was breathtaking, the creativity of the different contests. I'm not even sure that that's the right word, but the different categories that they were competing in. And my favorite was business executive realness.
Oh, yes!
And these people wearing suits with briefcases, and they would parade and march in front of the judges. And you could buy the judges off, and they would open their cases and they would throw packs of fake money at them to win. And if that didn't work, when they came back around through the second time, they would open their briefcases and throw packets of cocaine.
I love it. I love it.
I just absolutely
If this doesn't make sense to you, go watch a primer and an education on ballroom culture. Paris is Burning on Netflix. Go watch it. Don't be like
That's
Al.
it. Al's come a long way. Give him some credit, all right? Next up,
Me and RuPaul.
Yeah, you and RuPaul. You're about the same age. That's what happens, right?
We are the exact same age.
And your birthday's this week.
Yeah.
And they're related.
And they're related!
They look just alike.
Well, she is a good old white girl.
That she is. That she is. Next up, let's queer up health. Courts allow Tennessee ban on gender-affirming care for youth to stand. Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth can go into effect at least for now, after a federal appeals court on Saturday temporarily reversed a lower court ruling. Last month, a district court judge in Tennessee found that the state's new law banning transgender therapies like hormone blockers and surgeries for transgender youth was unconstitutional because it discriminated based on sex. The judge blocked large swaths of the law from taking effect. And on Saturday, however, the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Cincinnati granted an emergency appeal from Tennessee. In a 2-1 ruling, the majority wrote that decisions on emerging policy issues like transgender care are generally better left to legislatures rather than judges. Chief Judge Jeffrey Sutton wrote, quote, "Given the high stakes of these nascent policy deliberations, the long-term health of children facing gender dysphoria, sound government usually benefits from more rather than less debate," end quote. The ruling is preliminary and remains in force only until the appeals court conducts a full review of the appeal. Sutton wrote that the appeal process will be expedited with the goal of resolving the case by September 30th. The ACLU, its Tennessee chapter, and 2 law firms called Saturday's ruling beyond disappointing and a heartbreaking development. It really is a heartbreaking development. You know, gender-affirming care is how to keep youth from depression. It's how to keep youth from wanting to kill themselves, like we talked about on another story, you know? The Trevor Project sends out a report every single year telling us how youth is affected, right? And it's gotten worse and worse. You know, the science is there. Why not believe the science for once in our lives right now? Right? You give a kid gender-affirming care and they stay alive. There's no surgeries done on a kid that's 12 years old. That's just bullshit that the right wing wants you to believe. It's just basically socially having them get the tools that they need to live life as their true, authentic self, and you're taking that away.
Yeah, to me, it seems like this case is primed for review for the Supreme Court because even though it's a temporary ban at the moment, it goes through further review at the 6th Court of Appeals. By September 30th, we should have a decision. It's likely to be the same decision affirmed, and it might go up before the Supreme Court. But something that I found interesting was that the ACLU spokesperson said that this is the first, if this happens, the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals will be the first federal circuit to allow a ban on transgender healthcare for minors to go into effect. So it's setting an awful precedent for the rest of the nation. So pay attention to this case. It might warrant further review.
Francia, I want to jump in. Your legal expertise. I have a slightly different take in that while, yes, I'm disappointed in the conclusion, I'm really not disappointed in the conclusion because what this does is it just propels it closer. Are you optimistic that under equal protection, which is one of the conclusions, the Supreme Court has already ruled on trans health 2 years ago, and principally the decision was made on equal protection, that you couldn't say this class of people couldn't have the same healthcare access as this class of people, and therefore was unconstitutional, and that's how they ruled in a healthcare decision. This just pushes it closer. Are you optimistic that the court might come to that same conclusion? I
wish I had good news to share, but we have seen recent cases on settled law, on affirmative action, and also on same-sex and LGBT rights. The court it's reversing itself, it's changing course. We see a court that's largely conservative. We see 6-3s along party lines by whom they were nominated. And so I'm not optimistic, actually. And it's sad because while many of these rights, they were settled, affirmative action, right? I mean, I've benefited from affirmative action to enter to law school in undergrad, and now that goes away. And so I'm not optimistic, sadly.
And one thing I want to point out is this is not emerging. You know, this has been in effect. This is the standard of care that practitioners and healthcare have been doing for decades.
Yeah.
The only, as I've said before on this show, the only youth that are having gender-related surgeries are intersex kids. against their will.
Yeah.
They always leave that exception out, and this is settled. I mean, this has been, and it shouldn't be between legislatures. It should be between their doctors and their families.
Yeah, and who is successful are outlets like Newsmax and Fox News that basically lie over and over and over again that all of these thousands of children, minors, are undergoing sexual reassignment or other kinds of invasive procedures, and that is completely a lie.
Completely false.
It's just completely false. The one other thing that I think is interesting in this case is the panel's observation that they think it is better that legislature makes a decision as opposed to the courts. Okay, well, in a perfect world, that is true. I thought that was an interesting observation that the court made in their amicus's decision. And the reason is because they want to say, they were trying to go on record to say we shouldn't even be doing this. And it's better for the legislature to make a decision. Well, the problem is in the federal court, they will never get to that because California will operate in one way, which will be completely different than what will operate in Texas or in Florida. And as a result, there's going to continually be a conflict in state legislative decision making, which is why there has to be federal protection. And it is unimaginable that we're going to get federal protection. We can't get the Equality Act, much less the intricacy of health care. So as a result, the Supreme Court is where the decision is going to be made. I just say, and it surprises me on what you said, I accept the rationale of your observation. If the Supreme Court does not sustain affirmative action is slightly different because the point of affirmative action in their decision was Francia has the same exact right as the woman has and is the exact same right as the white persona in terms of college application process. And you should not have leg up is really, whether you agree with it or not, that was the interpretation of how they justified that 6-3 decision. That's not this case. This case is to say that trans healthcare must be provided from an equal protection under the law because everyone has a constitutional right to healthcare. And because of the overwhelming preponderance of evidence from our medical professionals, they should have access to it. Slightly different. If the Supreme Court rules against this case in terms of equal protection, we have a whole series of catastrophic issues ahead because it indicates this minority point of view is getting ready to derail the democracy of the United States.
Yeah, it's gaining traction. And I want to respond to your comment about the judge made an effort to say we shouldn't even be doing this. Usually courts lag behind than legislatures in adjusting to public opinion, to modern society. Yeah. So his point was to say, you know, legislatures respond to their constituents' needs, and so they should be the ones doing it. But we know how that goes, right? Yeah. And so we're screwed in both scenarios.
Yeah. And let's pray the Supreme Court is not, as you suggested, and concerned, because if they do come to that conclusion, we have a world of problems.
I hope I'm wrong.
In all segments of our society.
I hope you're wrong too. For once,
I really do. Please be wrong. Right.
All right. Next, let's queer up gaming. 36-year-old award-winning game franchise Final Fantasy finally sees gay character.
You must consider your health, my prince. If a show of force is needed to keep the Dalmex at bay, you may trust in your dragoons. I beg you to call on Bahamut only as a last resort. His strength comes at too great a cost. The Empire agreed to an armistice with the Republic, and yet the Emperor still plots its ruin. For now, the Dalmex suspect nothing, and as long as I can hold their gaze, war need not be inevitable. But more than that, Bahamut is the champion of the Empire. When our people look to the heavens, the sight of him gives them hope. I will always be your loyal servant.
A gay kiss in Final Fantasy XVI. Yes, you heard it right. It's Prince Dion Lesage, the dominant of Bahamut. The King of Dragons is gay. It's all too rare to see LGBTQ plus representation in high-profile AAA games. But to see it here in a Final Fantasy game too was such a moment of joy for the community players. Dion and his attendant Terrence share a quiet heart-to-heart inside his tent, discussing the intricacies of war with the neighboring Dalmix, a conversation spurred by anxiety. Then they kiss, a tender moment among the bloodshed as they both consider what's at stake. And then they move on. It's authentic and normalized. It's not sexual, but simply two characters sharing intimacy. Dion's sexuality is only referenced once more later, as well as in a description of the relationship in the game's active time lore feature, in a deeply affecting tragic moment with little dialogue that's a testament to the game's visual and acting. For the most part, Dion's sexuality is simply a part of his character that defies explanation. He simply is gay. It has no bearing on the plot, yet has huge ramifications for LGBTQ plus players. Now, here's how I really feel, because I don't play video games because I have a life. Did y'all see a kiss? Because I didn't. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh my God, that was amazing. I didn't see a kiss. It's giving very much so Modern Family, where all the other couples got the kiss, but the gay couple just hugged.
Ew.
If y'all go look back at the show, actually don't give them ratings, they don't need it. But I love gay people and stuff. I love it.
And
but
stuff.
It didn't feel gay. I didn't see a kiss. That was two bros talking in a tent. But that's just how I feel. How y'all feel?
And I love how you feel, Bonnie, and that's legit. You know, the reality is that what I love about it is that it's not all in your face. That's actually what I love about it, all right? The first thing that when I describe myself, the first thing I don't say is I'm a lesbian, right? I'm a girl, I'm Latina, I like salsa, blah, blah, blah. You know, so I love that it's like he's gay, they kiss, and he moves on. It has nothing to do with the game or nothing. Like you, I don't give a shit about video games. I don't play video games. I'm too busy having sex, right? So there's that, right? Okay, but 36 years, and it took Final Fantasy 36 years to have us represented, but I'm still gonna give them props. They're both really good looking, and if they had an OnlyFans, I would subscribe.
But check this out. This is actually a very big deal. I'm learning from our team that the video gaming industry is larger than the music industry and the movie industry combined.
Oh, for sure. I bet.
This tender moment, whether it was a kiss or not, it's a huge moment for the industry. And we should have known that he was gay because he's the Prince Dion Lesage, the dominant of Bahamut.
So he's a top.
Dom top.
So he's a top.
We should have known this by his title, right? And we've seen archetypes like this in Game of Thrones, where the prince and his assistant kind of have like a secretive relationship. So we keep seeing this theme.
Yeah, I love that. The Prince and the King of Dragons.
Yes.
Getting it on.
Yeah.
I will sit here and slam my fist on the table and just be that one person. It's not enough. I need, like, suck his dick.
Wow, damn. Final Fantasy this.
Can I say dick on here? Eat his ass.
Did.
That better. Like, do something like, great, I love it, representation, yada, yada. 36 years, we can do a little bit more. Can they be holding hands? Can one be like wearing a shirt that says like he's mine, the other one says like I'm his? Like some more gay stuff in the game.
They're not at Pride, Bonnie. They're wherever they're at.
Why not?
They need you, Bonnie, as a consultant.
God damn it! They did a gay pride in video game.
I think I also don't really play video games, but not because I have anything against them. I'm just too impatient to learn the rules. But so I think what's really good about this is people are invested in the game. This 36 years, people are invested in the characters. I'm imagining that this doesn't happen right in the beginning of the game. It's probably midway or towards the end. So they've already developed a relationship and are, like maybe care about these characters. So now they're invested, and we've made them care about a gay relationship. We've made them care about a gay person, and that's how we win in anything. Is we make them care about us as individuals.
Normalize us.
Exactly.
And
Oh, you go ahead.
No, they care about this character especially because what I understand is Bahamut is the king of all dragons, right? So the only person that has access to Bahamut is this gay prince. he has a direct connection to the creator in a way. So it's giving like two-spirit vibes where the two spirits were considered to be connected and sacred. And in this case, this prince is also connected to the creator. So it's giving a lot, actually.
Girl, up your standards.
Right. Please, far be it from me to go political. I think it's interesting that the game is launched in the same week that we watched DeSantis's new commercial that he launched on his attack on Donald Trump.
That commercial.
And in that commercial, he showed all of the words that came out of Donald Trump's mouth from the the Republican convention in 2016, where then candidate Trump said, "I'm going to do everything possible to protect the LGBTQ community." Whether he did that or not, that's not the point. Those were the words that came out of his mouth. His words about Caitlyn Jenner and all of the other related LGBT people. And DeSantis showed how homophobic he really was by the attack ad that was created. And even conservative Republicans said, this is homophobic. Even the wishy-washy log cabin Republicans said, this is homophobic. In the exact same week, I think it's interesting that DeSantis launches this, Final Fantasy launches this. Now, the reason to me that is important is because the people that we really need to change about our community is not the Ron DeSantis's. That homophobia ship has sailed and is never coming back to port. So give up on that. He's dead to our community. There's no winning him. Who there is to win is those millions of fans of Final Fantasy, because they do that. And I hear you loud and clear. It's very but in all seriousness, it is a fantastic start. Maybe not everything that we want, but they're pursuing an attitude of change that are the people that will ultimately go, what is the stupidity of the DeSantis commercial really trying to tell us? And Final Fantasy accomplished that this week.
I give.
Next, let's queer up the worldview. Eastern European country Georgia cancels Pride Week at Fester's Invade venue. On Saturday, the Pride Week event in Tbilisi was called off and attendees were bused to safety. The organizers have accused authorities of being complicit in the face of far-right threats of violence. The organizers behind Georgia's Pride Week were forced to cancel an event after thousands of far-right demonstrators and other opponents of LGBTQ rights stormed the venue. The open-air event at a park outside Tbilisi was called off after the demonstrators destroyed the stage, burned rainbow flags, and looted the event's bar. Deputy Interior Minister Alexander Derakovitsy said, quote, "The protesters managed to find ways to enter the event area, but we were able to evacuate the Pride participants and organizers," end quote. The far-right groups had publicly incited violence against LGBTQ+ activists. They accused authorities of being complicit amid these threats. Pride organizers claimed that police did not adequately block the access road to the festival site or use proportionate force against the far-right demonstrators. According to local media reports, the protesters, numbering as many as 5,000, waved Georgian flags and carried religious icons. Georgia's figurehead president Salome Zurabishvili said the government, quote, "must ensure that the Pride Festival is held in safety," end quote. Well, I think this is a unfortunate and disheartening event in a string of disheartening and upsetting events. I mean, I think even though Georgia is a small country, and we're not, not talking about the state, the fact that they had a Pride event, and they had all these people who put their time and their effort and their, wanting to be a more inclusive space, and then to have it overrun by 5,000 demonstrators and
hooligans.
Yeah, and nobody was expecting that or prepared for that. That I'm a little bit like, that's a lot of people to just come out of nowhere.
Right.
That, you have to know there's things planning.
5,000. And when I first read this story, kids, I was like, okay, if this happened at Flock Fest, we would fight back. Yeah. That was before I saw 5,000. You know what I mean? Like, we can't get like 5 protesters here, So it's like 5,000. And like, they looted, they messed up the stage, they stole booze, you damn alcoholics. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And it reminds us how we're hated. You know, in other places more so than here.
Absolutely. And the Pride organizers are claiming that the police knew, was in cahoots, or simply ignored it. And two items are really concerning. One, they didn't adequately block off the streets to the festival. That's one. And number two, they didn't use proportionate force to the right-wing demonstrators, right? That shows that they were sort of like not really protecting.
Looking the other way, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's problematic.
Yeah, insurrection all over again.
It reminds me of what's happened to the United States flag. You know, growing up, that used to mean just, oh, it's our country, whatever, we live here. And now when I see an American flag being on someone's truck or on someone's shirt or on something, I'm like, it almost feels like seeing the Confederate flag. Because that's a short term now of what this person stands for and what they believe. To hear that they're waving the Georgian flag here, it's a similar sentiment.
You know, and speaking of the Confederate flag, I'm a little confused. Is this story talking about Macon, Georgia?
Sounds like it, right?
Sounds like Macon, Georgia to me, by the way. The other thing that I think, I want to echo your joke, they can riot and they can burn, but they certainly can loot the bar. So it's the intended decision of going, oh wait, don't touch the alcohol. So, you know, you wonder there. The overall issue of the impression of what we watched in Tbilisi is a reminder to all of us. This is a region of the world that, and the Slavic nature of Russia, of Poland, of Hungary, of Georgia, Belarus. It's innate in homophobia. Yeah. It's just innate there. And I don't know if y'all have heard, but President Putin has told us there is not a single gay person in all of Russia.
Yeah.
Except for him.
Except for him. And when you can say something like that, what do you expect a population that's listening to your leadership? If you're listening to a president of Poland, much less the president of Hungary, when the European Union is saying this is unacceptable and we may throw you out of the European Union if you continue, you can't be surprised at what we watched at Tbilisi. And the other thing that I think is really important about what we watched in Tbilisi is it is why we should all be active in our protest in LGBT. Because this kind of thinking, even in places where we think we're extremely safe, is just sitting below the surface. And whether it's trans, or whether it's people of color, or whether it's women, or whether it's religious minority, Jewish and anti-Semitism, it's all still sitting there beneath the surface. And I think we got to a place, especially with marriage and the Supreme Court decision in 15, of a comfortableness, and forgot that Tbilisi is still sitting in large segments of American society. Not the majority. It is definitely a minority, but it is a powerful minority that we're facing. And I think one of the number one things of watching what happened at Tbilisi over the weekend is to recognize, wait, that could be Montgomery, Alabama. That could be Biloxi, Mississippi. And as a result, we have an obligation that we shouldn't be convincing our community to stand up for trans people, for Black people, for women and women's healthcare decision-making, et cetera, and so on. And right now, I ask this question over and over and over again. Where are you? Which is why we have a We the People March. Where are you? Tbilisi is not far behind if we are not there for all of us.
So true. Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
Well, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up business. Iconic WeHo locations, the Abbey and the Chapel, go up for sale. David Cooley, the founder and owner of the Abbey Food and Bar and the Chapel at the Abbey, has listed both West Hollywood businesses for sale. A source directed the WeHo Times to the listing of the Abbey WeHo and the Chapel in Marcus and Millchap of Brandon Michaels Group, a real estate agency in the area. The listing of both spaces is described as, quote, a generational purchase opportunity to acquire one of the world's most iconic gay bars and restaurants in the U.S., the Abbey and the Chapel at the Abbey, including its tangible and intangible assets, with all branding and branding rights to the businesses in trophy West Hollywood real estate, end quote.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up sports. Lesbian soccer star Megan Rapinoe to retire from sports.
I understand that it is incredibly rare for athletes of any stature to be able to go out in their own way, on their own terms, at the time that they want, in a way that feels really peaceful and settled for them. So I feel very grateful that I'm here and that I have the trust of this team.
Lesbian activist, anti-racist, transgender ally, and two-time World Cup champion Megan Rapinoe announced on Instagram on Saturday that this championship season will be her last. Rapinoe, an Olympic gold medalist from London 2012, will play in her fourth and final World Cup this summer in Australia and New Zealand before returning to her NWSL team, All Reign. Rapinoe told reporters at a press conference, quote, I've been able to have such an incredible career, and this game has brought me all over the world and allowed me to meet so many amazing people, end quote. In 2022, Rapinoe became the first soccer player to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up gay culture. Tom of Finland Vodka wants you to vote for the hottest new photo on Instagram. This year, the iconic artist Tom of Finland would have turned 103 years old. So what better way to celebrate Tom's birthday than with an erotic photography competition? In May, Tom of Finland Vodka invited the public to submit their own original photography for Tom's birthday photo competition. You can vote for your favorite image by commenting on the Instagram post of your choice with the word vote and hashtag Tom's photo competition. The image that receives the most votes will be the audience winner, while a jury winner will be chosen by a curated panel. Voting remains open through July 11th, and the winner will be announced on July 12th. See photos on Instagram at Tom of Finland Vodka.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up entertainment. Kevin Spacey accused of coming out of the closet to distract from sexual misconduct claims. An accuser and actor Kevin Spacey's UK sexual assault trial has said that Spacey only came out as gay in 2017 to disguise the sexual misconduct claims against him. The trial involves 3 UK men who have accused Spacey of 12 counts of sexual assault and non-consensual sexual activity. These offenses allegedly occurred in London in 2005 and 2008 and Gloucestershire, England in 2013. During the trial, the accuser said that Spacey had directed a machine gun of sexual comments toward him before groping the man's crotch inside of a London theater. The accuser said the alleged assault felt like it lasted an eternity, leaving him feeling belittled and worthless.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up drag culture. Portland, Oregon will rename a city square after town resident and iconic drag queen Darcel 15. Portland, Oregon is set to rename a public square after the late Darcel 15, a local legend who held the record as the world's oldest working drag performer. On July 7th, Portland announced the momentous decision to rename O'Brien Square to Darcel 15 Plaza in memory of the late legend. The city said the move also celebrated the, quote, vibrant LGBTQ plus history and culture that have shaped Portland, end quote. Portland City Commissioner Dan Ryan said that by renaming O'Brien Square to Darcel 15 Plaza, the city is embracing and celebrating the indelible contributions of Darcel 15 to our city's LGBTQ plus community, end quote. That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, Francia, Bonnie Builder, and Mateo Ventura Bruer. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ+ world, we wish you
good night.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.